Peace, brothers and sisters. This is Hua Qi. Thank God it is time again for our Bible reading. Let's continue to read Genesis chapter 26. Today we will start from verse 6. There was a famine in the land. Isaac was planning on going to Egypt like Abraham did. Halfway there, in Gerar, the Lord appeared to him and asked him to not go down to Egypt. Verse 6. So Isaac settled in Gerar. Gerar means a lodging place, a temporary living place. This indicated that the land God promised to Isaac was in Canaan. Gerar was between Canaan and Egypt. Not until David's time, Gerar became part of Israel. In Genesis' time, Gerar represented a man who acted in his soul based on the principle of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. It is a place where one could reason. Verse 7. When the man of the place asked him about his wife, he said, "She's my sister." For he feared to say, "my wife," thinking lest the man of the place should kill me because of Rebekah, because she was attractive in appearance. I believe when reading this, many saints will smile. What Isaac did looked familiar to us. Let's spend some time to see the similarities and differences between Isaac and Abraham, both of whom had called their wives sisters. When Isaac lived in Gerar, the residents there should all be Philistines. When they saw Rebekah was attractive, they asked Isaac, "Who is this person?" Isaac naturally replied, "She's my sister." Actually, Rebekah was his wife. The reason he gave was also told in the Bible. Rebekah was afraid that people would kill Isaac for her. Rebekah means ensnare. She was charming, beautiful, and attractive, so men would fall for her unknowingly. Abraham's family must have some good genes. Sarah was his half-sister. She was very beautiful. Rebekah was the granddaughter of Nahor, who was Abraham's brother. She was so beautiful that men would fall into the trap of her beauty unknowingly. We can literally see that it is a trouble to be too beautiful. In today's society, people value handsome men and beautiful women. People like to be good-looking. Have we ever thought that if a person is too beautiful, this could be his or her trouble? Just like Rebekah. She was very beautiful. Isaac was afraid people would kill him for Rebekah. Thus, Rebekah's beauty was a problem. This was a problem in the surface. Let's dig deeper. It was not Rebekah's beauty, but Isaac's fear of being murdered. It was his fear and feeling of insecure from his heart. Rebekah's beauty was a surface issue. The root problem was Isaac's insufficient confidence and insecurity. If you dig even deeper, after reading the life of Abraham, he called his wife Sarah sister twice because of Sarah's beauty. The first time was when Abraham just began to follow God. God wanted to lead him into Canaan, where he knew nothing about. He did not have enough faith since he just started to follow God. Thus, he made a covenant with Sarah that they should call each other brother and sister when going to a place where people did not know God. In the beginning, it was because Abraham lacked faith. As he continued to follow God, his faith grew. Later, this happened again, which was not merely because of faith, but because this had become his habit. When arriving an unknown place, he naturally would call Sarah his sister. This became Abraham's hidden weakness. This hidden weakness became hereditary. We saw from Isaac that he inherited everything from Abraham, which included God's blessings, positive part, and Abraham's weaknesses and bad habits, negative parts. Dear brothers and sisters, we might make some decisions when faith was lacking. Later, as we grew and our faith increased, we needed to properly deal with those wrong decisions, or else these wrong decisions would become our habits, then became our hidden weaknesses. These hidden weaknesses, like genes, are passed on to the next generation. This is something we needed to recognize. From outside, it looked like Isaac was afraid of being murdered because of Rebekah's beauty. Thus, he called her sister. From inside, this seed was planted at the time of Abraham. It kept growing in Isaac, and when the circumstances presented itself, it was developed. Isaac seemed to be like Abraham in his weaknesses. However, the ways God dealt with them were different. Even for Abraham, God dealt with him differently for those two instances. When Abraham just started to follow God and just entered Canaan, he went down to Egypt because of the famine. Because he called Sarah his sister, she was taken by the Pharaoh of Egypt. God did not speak to Abraham in that instant. God disciplined Pharaoh and inflicted serious diseases on his household. God protected Sarah. Abraham received a lot of treasure because of this incident. About 25 years later, Abraham had grown and his faith was stronger. He went to Gerar in his weakness. There he called Sarah his sister. She was taken by Abimelech, king of Gerar. This time, God did not speak to Abraham either. He came to Abimelech in a dream one night and helped Abraham through King Abimelech. God not only protected Sarah, but also used King Abimelech. He told Abimelech that Abraham was a prophet. God also closed up every womb in Abimelech's household. Abimelech must ask Abraham to pray for them. God helped Abraham through Abimelech and dealt with Abraham's hidden weaknesses. We read this before. Now, let's read how God dealt with the instance of Isaac calling Rebekah his sister. Verse 8, when he had been there a long time. This indicated that what Isaac worried about, people would murder him for Rebekah, did not happen. This was his own fear and lacking of faith in his own heart. Abimelech, king of the Philistines, looked out of a window and saw Isaac laughing with Rebekah, his wife. When Isaac was in Gerar, he and Rebekah often had intimate actions since they were husband and wife. It just happened that their actions were saw by King Abimelech. Of course, King Abimelech knew instantly that they were couples instead of siblings. Verse 9, so Abimelech called Isaac and said, behold, she is your wife. How then could you say she is my sister? Isaac said to him, because I thought, lest I die because of her. In the case of Isaac's lying, God did not let Rebekah be taken away. He did not intervene either. He let King Abimelech saw it by accident. Here we see that Isaac was a little better than Abraham. God's supernatural intervention often happens when we are not able to follow God's will. In order to protect us, he had to disrupt the natural law. He intervened to protect us. When a Christian's life slowly grows, his words and actions naturally fit God's law. Even if he makes mistakes sometimes, he naturally could learn the lesson from the surroundings, people, and things. From the spiritual side, this is a step forward. From the other side, we also see that Philistines also made progress between the two King Abimelech. In the instance of King Abimelech married Sarah, They recognized that Abraham was God's prophet. They could not offend him nor wrong him. In chapter 21, King Abimelech saw that God for sure blessed Abraham's household. Thus, he went to Beersheba to sign a treaty with Abraham. He asked Abraham to swear an oath that Abraham's descendants would show kindness to the descendants of Philistines, just like the kindness King Abimelech had shown to Abraham. Thus, in Isaac's time, under the leadership of the new king Abimelech, they learned the lesson and were afraid of offending God. Thus, when the king saw Isaac was playing with Rebekah and knew they were couples, he immediately questioned Isaac. Verse 10. Abimelech said, "What is this you have done to us? One of the people might easily have laid with your wife, and you would have brought guilt upon us." So Abimelech warned all the people, saying, "Whoever touches this man or his wife shall surely be put to death." King Abimelech was a good king. Though they did not know God nor following God, the nation knew right from wrong and was a state of law. They could even be used by God to correct a weak or a failing Christian. This also showed us that the reason a Christian had found favor with God, not because his actions were better than others, but because of the life of God in him. When this life was still immature, he would fail and fall. However, there are endless potentials in this life. He can keep learning under the grace of God. Every failure is a chance for him to receive grace. He confesses his sins to God. God is faithful and righteous. God will forgive his sins. In this process, his life grows. One day, when this life matured, it will display the glory of God. Thus, as Christians, we do not look at our circumstances today, but look to the height we will be able to reach one day during our sanctification process, and be able to build in us the goodness of Jesus Christ. In Isaac, he seemed inherited Abraham's hidden weakness. To save his own life, he was willing to sacrifice his own wife. However, God did not have to deal with Isaac's weakness himself. Through the arrangement he set around Isaac, the people and things, especially the good king Abimelech, he made Isaac to face his own failure and weakness. This was fulfilled in God's grace. Verse 12. And Isaac sowed in that land and reaped in the same year 100-fold. The Lord blessed him. And the man became rich and gained more and more until he became very wealthy. On one hand, Isaac's weakness was dealt with. On the other, God surely blessed Isaac. Isaac began to sow in that land. They were shepherds and often changing their dwelling places based on the needs of the herd. A farmer has land and often settled in his land. When they were in Gerar, Isaac began to sow. God blessed him greatly. In the same year, the year there was famine in Canaan, he reaped 100-fold, while no one else had much harvest. A person who rests in God's promises is blessed. He became rich and gained more and more until he became very wealthy. God wanted to bless Isaac. The Philistines in Gerar knew this house was blessed. Isaac became the farmer with 100-fold harvest. However, he did not give up on his former career. He was a shepherd. Verse 14, he had possessions of flocks and herds and many servants, so that the Philistines envied him. This is very special, that God's purpose for blessing Isaac was to provoke the jealousy of Philistines. God set the circumstances, so all things work together for good for those who are called according to his purpose. When the land of Canaan had a famine, Isaac wanted to go down to Egypt. God himself appeared to him and asked him to stay in Gerar. However, Gerar was not the promised land. Thus God did not want him to stay there too long. God then blessed him, so he had 100-fold harvest, and had possessions of flocks and herds and many servants, to the point that the Philistines envied him. The Bible seemed to show us that a person or a nation who lived by his soul and based on the principle of the tree of knowledge of good and evil might look good from the surface. They might have some fair laws, yet these could not change their hearts. When God blessed Isaac more than the Philistines, they began to envy Isaac. A true spiritual person can weep with those who weep and rejoice with those who rejoice. A natural person might be able to keep certain principles of right and wrong, yet unable to rid of the greed and jealousy in his heart. He could not bear to see that others are better. God used these circumstances to help Isaac understand God's will and God's leading. Let's pray. Lord, please bless us with the spirit of wisdom and revelation in our daily life. Through the surroundings, I could learn to follow your will, and understand your leading for me. We confess that we still have many weaknesses in our hearts that have not been dealt with. Give us your daily blessings. Through the supply of your daily words, may my life grow abundantly. Give me a sensitive spirit so I could understand your leading. Bless my day in Jesus' name. Amen.